Well, and I don't know. It just suddenly occurred to me that if they are a police officer, not only are they a human being, but they also may have a person, but then they have a uniform. And I was wondering...
well, the uniform is the badge of his office. So he is an officer. He's acting as an officer of the corporation.
So he's a police person, I suppose.
But if you were a peace officer, you are acting as an officer of the common law, the peace.
Right.
So it's two different things, and it's confused, and they'll swap between one and another during a conversation with you.
And that's why you want to try.
They're wearing big floppy shoes. They're in a brown car, and they're waving a badge saying, "I am the law." How much more ridiculous does that get?
If only they would all wear big, bright foam red noses.
Although a lot of them do. They're so drunk usually.
Well, I was pulled over, and this is years ago. This is before I was married. I was pulled over. I used to own a 1982 Volkswagen Vanagon. It was beautiful, and I loved it. And I'm driving home, and I get onto the highway in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm heading north on 131. And the speed limit drops to 55 miles an hour just as I get onto the highway, and it's 70 miles an hour beforehand. And I'm in the far right-hand lane, the slowest lane, doing the speed limit, driving along, doing my own business. It's 3 lanes across and then 3 lanes on the other side, and there's this vehicle whizzing up on the side, and I think to myself, God, I hope there's a cop out there to pull them over. And then suddenly I look over and realize that it's a cop, and they pull me over. And they search my whole vehicle and put me through this whole big, huge, long hassle. And then finally let me go at the end, and don't issue me a ticket, and don't give me any other grief or anything. And I write down badge numbers, and vehicle number, and time and date, and location, and cite them both for harassment the next day. And I never had another cop bother me the whole time that I drove that vehicle in the whole city and county and state, for that matter. And it's that easy to do. All you have to do is assert your rights. All you have to do is just say, I was doing my duty of driving my vehicle freely and I was harassed. Right. I was traveling in my automobile. And I was doing my duty of traveling in my automobile to protect the rights of people to be able to travel freely. This is my duty. And they told me the reason they pulled me over is because my license plate was attached by one screw and hanging crooked. And I never fixed it, never adjusted it, never put another screw in on the other side, and drove for 2 more years. And no one ever pulled me over ever again. And I never thought about it at the time, but it was really nothing more than just claiming that you can't do that. You tried to do it once, you tried to get away with it, and you can't do it. Well, I didn't challenge the officers at the time. They pulled me over, and the first thing they asked was, are there any illegal drugs or weapons in the vehicle? I'm like, no. License, registration, and insurance. So I pull out my license, and I'm digging for my other information. I give him my registration, and I can't find my insurance card. And he goes, don't worry about it. I'll ask you again, any illegal drugs or weapons in the vehicle? And I say, there's a hacksaw in one of the back cabinets, but I don't think that counts. He goes, no, sir. May I search the vehicle? And I know at this point that if I say no, I'm screwed because they'll just haul me out and put cuffs on me. Well, no.
You see, what that would have done is, if you'd have said, you know, if you'd have said no at that point, you know, you don't consent to the search, because you don't say no, you say,
But I'd already
I do
consented
not.
to the existence of my person by handing over my license.
Yeah, but you still have a right. It's per statute, per case. Yeah?
Well, but
so then you can say,
again,
I do not consent to this search. You know, because you're placing me under duress.
It's not
Yeah?
a blanket consent. That's why they make so many offers in a row. It's per incident, per statute, and per act. I mean, per time. You know.
Yes, it is.
There is no blanket consent.
And if you had said I don't consent, you'd already told them there was a hacksaw in the back. They'd have used that and said, well, that's a weapon. They'd have changed their mind and called it a weapon.
Yeah.
And then you would have been handcuffed because you were carrying this weapon in the back, called a hacksaw.
Well, sure, of course, but you see, at that point, I knew that if I didn't allow them to search the vehicle, I was going to have problems. But because I had already admitted to the only thing in the vehicle that could have been considered any type of a weapon, and it was so far removed, it was all the way in the back of the vehicle, so there's no way I could have gotten to it before they
Yeah, but you
stopped
see, it's the words he used afterward. Oh, that's not bad. I'm going to ask you the question again. That doesn't matter, you know, that hacksaw.
Right.
But it would have
exactly,
mattered. It would have mattered if you'd objected, because then he would have jumped on you.
They'll give you any excuse.
Sure. But I kind of had a feeling that if I didn't admit to the only thing that they could have found and proven on me and gotten them to deny that as being a weapon, I was going to be screwed. And I wasn't aware of any of the stuff at this point that were that.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the plea bargain even though I'm innocent, because at least I'm admitting to something. Are you innocent or not? They always want you to bargain away into a position of guilty somehow.
Well, but here's the thing.
I felt that
No, hold on. If I can, just real briefly, I knew that there was nothing that they could get me on whatsoever. There was nothing that could be done.
If I just let him rape me, everything will be fine, and I'll go out.
No. It wasn't that if I just let them do this, I can go. I knew that if they really wanted to get something, I knew that if they really wanted to get something on me, they were going to do it. You have to remember, at the time, I was like 21 years old.
Do you know, I've
12, 13 years ago. So I was not in possession of any of the information that I am now. I had no idea about any of the stuff, and this was when I was in college. I was, 21 years old. I had just gotten out of work. It was a Monday night. I never worked on a Monday night. I just did it because I was doing
all these things.
I'm driving home, and I suddenly get pulled over for absolutely no reason whatsoever, and I'm still under the impression that police are trying to do their job. And this was probably the first real moment when I realized that they were out there to fuck whoever they could.
Well, it's worse than that. I've been coming to America since the 60s, in various capacities, yeah. And people now have been taught by intimidation and various other means to be absolutely afraid of the police and not stand up for your rights. People are in fear of the police force in America. You can't, you can't have a reasonable you can't have a reasonable conversation with a policeman. Because he's not a policeman. He's a police officer. He's an officer.
Right.
And you can't talk to these people. They just ignore everything you say.
They're insane. Everybody's a perpetrator.
Right.
You've all been criminalized.
No one's innocent, really. You're all guilty of something, ultimately, and if we figure out what it is, we can squeeze that to get information out of you to catch somebody bigger than you are. Don't worry about it. We'll find it out.
No, they squeeze you for that so that they can obtain money.
Exactly.
And that's all it's about. It's revenue. Generating revenue. Everything is about generating revenue.
Which,
Tax.
you know, I used to think that was frightening and amazing, but the more I understand how money is created and how it's perpetrated, and when I run these ideas past, like my mother's been in banking for as long as I've been alive, so 30 plus years. When I run some of these questions about how the banking operations work and whether banks actually loan any of their own assets and how they actually create the credit to devise loans to be able to give to people and collect back on them, and started sharing some of this information with her and sent her videos and documents to read over and everything, her response to all of it was, yeah, well, you're right. And she's been doing it for 30 years, and she has absolutely zero reason to lie to me. And to have that confirmation to realize that that's true, and to gain the understanding from that point of view from somebody that has truly been a part of it for that long and knows that that's how it's done on the inside, just validates so many things that are out there and answered so many questions for me, ultimately. And that's that coupled with that initial being pulled over and completely searched and had things fabricated against me to verify the search, and then to suddenly realize, because this one guy ran all my information in the cruiser while the other officer ransacked the total inside of my vehicle, to then have the officer who ran my information get out and try to joke around with me and be like, so, hey, is that a stove in there? Ha, ha, ha. What a cool vehicle. That's a great bus. Blah, 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 blah. And then the officer was tearing apart the entire inside of my bus, get out and flash his partner with the look of, I didn't find anything. What the hell are we going to do? And to tell me that the reason that they pulled me over was because my license plate was hanging crooked. Give me back all my information and tell me I can go. I had serious questions at that point about what they were trying to do out there on the roads. They pulled me over for no reason whatsoever. It was all because they had an anticipation of what they could gain, and they were doing so to perpetrate some kind of policy enforcement. It wasn't because I did anything wrong. And that was really the catalyst to take that up to where I am now, to have the vilification of the entire system and the vindication of not only the banking interests, but when I asked these questions of lawyers and police officers, and they refused to answer my questions and changed the subject because they don't want to talk to me about it. That's total vindication, because I know that if they do, their entire practice is over and done with, and they've broken oaths that they've made. How can you ever understand this stuff and walk away from it and go, no, that's not real? It's why we're on the air. It's why we're extremely glad that people are discovering this from all different capacities, not just understanding this from Menard, uncovering, because it is that pervasive, it is that real, it adds such credence to its validity, its understanding. And I'm sorry, I'm just standing on a soapbox at the moment, and somebody kick it out from underneath my feet, please.
Well, take for example, when I visit the United States and I take my passport with me, that requires, in international law, the United States that requires that they allow me to pass through that port into the country. But as soon as I do that, I'm an alien now. I'm not a human being. I'm an alien.
Right.
And that's how we described as an alien. Yeah, an illegal alien, or a but we're not
Not quite as bad as Space Alien, or probably worse.
But we're not aliens. We're humans, just like you guys are. And that's how they trick people. That's how they condition people to think. You know.
Right.
They've now linked alien with illegal. Now they've linked conspiracy with theory. So it doesn't matter if you can prove a conspiracy; it's still only a theory, no matter how much evidence you put forward. And they've conditioned people. You know, you say the word conspiracy to anybody, and they'll come up with theory. I bet you, because they've been so conditioned. And this comes back to the point of, do we have free will? Well, we do if we take it upon ourselves to have that free will. I think there was a song by Bob Marley, and part of that song was "Free your mind from mental slavery," and that's what you got to do. Free your mind from this mental slavery that they've been introducing.
Which is actually my favorite Bob Marley song, by the way. Yeah.
Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery.
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves shall free our minds.
That's right.
Have no fear for atomic energy, because none of us can stop at the time. How long will they kill our brothers? I'll be stand aside and look. Anyway, but go ahead, Caribbean. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so it's what we have to do is to free people's minds, so that they're aware that they've got a mind of their own, and they don't have to watch television and just soak all this garbage up and believe it. You know, be critical. Be critical. Be suspicious. Be, you know, don't just believe everything I say. Be suspicious of what I'm telling you. You know, make your own mind up whether what I'm saying is the truth. Don't just believe it because I'm part of the freedom movement. No. Make your own mind up. Free your own mind.
Exactly.
So I think that's part of this. It's all part of the same free man movement. Is to free your mind. You have to free your mind first.
Sure.
Take responsibility and become an adult.
Right. Yep. Exactly. You refuse to allow yourself to be a child of the state.
A child of the Satan.
Right.
Child of Satan.
Well, it's with all the indoctrination and propaganda coming out of places, it's increasingly difficult to people who've been submersed in this this illusion for so long. You know, to try and wake people up, you need to get people when they're young, because older people tend to be stuck in their ways. You know, teaching an old dog new tricks, and it takes a real effort to change people's minds, to open their minds to possibilities, to think for themselves.
Right. Well, you know, it's unfortunately that's exactly how it works. Is that people have to come to the understanding by themselves for the most part. Otherwise, they're never going to accept it. And the hardest thing is breaking past those barriers that they've erected around themselves that prevents them from...
You there?
Which, once again, is why we're out here and why we're trying to share these ideas and explain and express this stuff.
I've who have we lost? We lost someone. Someone went. Pop, 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 pop.
Oh,
No, still here. Oh, we got Iconoclast Radio. Oh, okay. I found a newspaper article you might find interesting. It's to do with September 11. It's connected with Israel. A full El Al flight took off on 9/11 from JFK to Tel Aviv. It's March 16th, 2010. I'll post a link. It's on the online journal. Just give me a second till I post a link. There. Okay. WMR, I'm not sure what WMR is at the moment, but it's got a link on it, has learned from two El Al sources who work for the Israeli airline at New York's John F. Kennedy Airport that on 9/11, hours after the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, grounded all civilian, domestic and international incoming and outgoing flights to and from the United States, a full El Al Boeing 747 took off from JFK bound for Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion International Airport. The two El Al employee sources are not Israeli nationals but legal immigrants from Ecuador who were working in the United States for the airline. The flight departed JFK at 4:11 p.m. and its departure was, according to the El Al sources, authorized by the direct intervention of the US Department of Defense. US military officials were on the scene at JFK and were personally involved with the airport and air traffic control authorities to clear the flight for takeoff. Because the FAA grounded all flights apparently,
Right.
but they let this one.
Attacks happen.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive.
Bum,
Yeah.
bum, 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 bum.
Okay.
Well, the truth is slowly coming out. I'm just hoping that the architects for truth managed to get their case into the Supreme Court and can show the evidence.
Well, knock on wood, right?
I'll continue with the thing, yeah. According to the 9/11 Commission report, Transportation Secretary Norman Mineta ordered all civilian flights to be grounded at 9:45 a.m. on September 11th. So the order was given at 9:45 a.m. to ground all civilian flights, and at 4:11 p.m. they allowed the flight from JFK to Tel Aviv to take place.
Well, of
And
course,
it
you
says
had
US
to
military is
extract
involved
all
with it.
members of the Bin Laden family straight out of the country as quickly as possible so that nothing could be done against them by anyone, because that was going to be the obvious target right away. You had to get them. You had to get all those Saudis out of here real quick.
That's it. The New York Air Traffic Control Center's audio tape of recollections of air traffic controllers made an hour and a half after 9/11 attacks were destroyed by an air traffic control manager who did not face criminal charges for destroying physical evidence on the worst terrorist attack in American history. The Transportation Department later claimed the destruction of the tape was a result of mere poor judgment. The El Al flight took off 2 days before commercial flights were permitted to resume on September 13th. So there's a toll 2 days. They were still banned after this flight was allowed. And it was still allowed in the banning period. Everything else was banned. Private flights were only permitted to resume on September the 14th. On September the 13th, a chartered Learjet flew 3 Saudis, including a member of the Saudi royal family, from Tampa to Lexington, Kentucky. On September 14th, a chartered North Star aviation flight flew 4 Saudis from Providence, Rhode Island to Paris. On August, I'll give this bit anyway. I'm not sure if it's totally appropriate. On August 22nd, 2005.
There are indications, by the way, that the one state that's in alliance with Israel is Saudi Arabia.
Sure.
Yeah, I heard that. On August 22nd, 2005, WMR reported 4 Americans flew with Air Bin Laden, flight transporting Bin Laden family members to Saudi Arabia and Europe 9 days after 9/11. The post-9/11 domestic flights of Bin Laden family members out of the United States, with a sanction of the Bush White House, were not the only instances where Americans have flown with the family that spawned Al-Qaeda leader Osama Bin Laden, Bin Bush.
Harry Potter's gang too?
Well, and just real briefly, if I can ask if anyone can confirm this, I have heard that even the name Al-Qaeda itself is nothing more than the name that was given to the computer program that was supplied to the Mujahideen prior to the Afghani-Soviet conflict in the late 70s and early 80s. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It was the computer program database for it. So Al-Qaeda isn't even anything other than, a reoccurrence of a made-up name anyway.
Right. But
So
John
anyone
Deutsch
listening...
John Deutsch lost the database at his own house. He was the CIA head. And he was put in prison for this, and Clinton, on his way out of office, pardoned him.
Wow, you mean the same guy who was letting that much cocaine come in during the 1980s? No
Yes.
way.
But he lost the database called Al-Qaeda. That's why he was in prison. At his house.
Oh, go figure.
Yeah. There's a little bit more. It's interesting.
So go ahead, I'm sorry.
WMR. That's fine. WMR has obtained a passenger list from a September 20th, 2001 Aero Services private charter flight from Le Bourget Airport, north of Paris, to Geneva, and on
Le Bourget.
Le Bourget, yeah. Did I say Le Bourget? I hope I didn't.
Yeah.
Did I? Excellent. To Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, King Abdulaziz International Airport, OEJN. On the list are a number of Bin Ladens. Oh, him and his clones. Well, it's him and his family. As well as 4 Americans, including a Los Angeles Police Department officer named Jason Blum, who flew to Le Bourget, there you go, from Los Angeles. A previous list provided to Senator Frank Lautenberg showed Mr. Blum departing from the Bin Laden party in Boston. The newly obtained list shows he accompanied the Bin Ladens to Paris. I'll call it Paris Le Bourget. There you go. I know it's Paris Le Bourget. The other 3 Americans on the passenger list are J.P. Bueno, Joseph Allen
Sounds
Weaker.
American to me.
Yeah.
Bueno?
Vuiono or something.
Is his brother Jar Jar Binks or something?
Yeah.
Just asking,
Joseph Allen Weaker and Ricardo V. Pasquetta. Although much has been written about the Bin Laden and other Saudi flights in the days after 9/11, the El Al flight on the afternoon of September 11th is the first instance of Israelis departing the United States while commercial traffic was grounded. There have also been reports that the FBI seized FAA records concerning the events of 9/11 from the New York Air Route Traffic Control Center in Islip, Long Island. The ARTCC has responsibility for flights out of JFK. That's it.
So, let me just get this straight and clarify for myself.
Oh,
The,
WML was Wayne Madison report.
The Saudi state is one of the only Middle Eastern countries that supports the nation of Israel. The vast majority of individuals implicated in the 9/11 attacks were of Saudi descent, supposedly. There were flights that were allowed out of the United States prior to any other commercial flights or private flights.
Excluding
that
other
flew
flights, basically.
To Israel,
Tel Aviv, yeah. And
where a large number of passengers were members of Saudi families, including the bin Laden family.
Are you asking why didn't we bomb Saudi Arabia?
All of this in conjunction with
Saudi royal family is not
all of the Jews being called and warned beforehand not to go to work on the morning of September 11th, and a huge group of members of Congress, lobbyists, and parties associated with Washington warned to not fly on the morning of September 11th. And yet there's nothing that ties all this together. Does anyone really actually believe that that's the case? I mean, seriously, it took me absolutely no time to figure it out, and yet you try to tell this to people, and they don't want to accept it. Is there any way that once you're in possession of this knowledge that it isn't true?
Yeah, you've been shown what really happened during this latest Dubai affair. Take into account the BBC interview of several and many of the hijackers after the event, the so-called suicide pilots. Take into account the stealing of all the passports and information that the Mossad did to pull off that murder in Dubai. Let's have a look at what really happened in this particular case. These so-called people who handed and found passports in various places of these people from Boston and from various other airports, false passports. These weren't the people involved. Obviously, they were others, but more likely Mossad, because this is a Mossad trademark. So what we can deduce then is that Mossad were one of the prime movers in the events of 9/11, and probably with the acquiescence of the neocons, the Zionist neocons, who were in the administration at the time.
Well, and even if you are completely opposed to the idea that it was an inside job, all you have to do is look at one single piece of evidence to start the questioning process. Their proof that one of these individuals was on the plane is that a piece of their passport was found on the ground amidst rubble after the attacks on the World Trade Center. And how is it that a plane, all of its passengers, everything including the black box, vaporized except this one piece of a connective paper to a passport? Are you kidding me? That alone by itself should raise the entire question of how the hell are you going to try and sell that on me? It negates the basic initial principle. I'm still waiting. Apparently Lenny has information that indicates how it was, no one in New York actually saw planes hit. It was everything that we saw that was a video footage was CGI manipulated video footage, and I'm waiting to see that just so that I can,
Real quick, I could
understand
recommend September Clues, 9/11 Octopus, and 9/11 Taboo. I mean, I don't bet the farm on these things, but boy, there are a lot of problems. And they
Did
do
you
match
say
the original
September
footage.
Octopus?
Yeah, 9/11 Octopus is actually quite good.
Why, can I just ask very briefly why Octopus is coordinated with it?
Because the NWO is an octopus with different arms on the same devil or whatever.
Okay, well, the reason that I ask that is because in the editorial section of the local paper, yesterday's edition, if I can find it real quick here, they do an indictment of Goldman Sachs, and all it is a character in a suit and a tie sitting at the St. Louis Post Dispatch. You can find it, I guess, on Cagle, C-A-G-L-E, cartoons.com. But it's an individual sitting in front of a little plaque that says Goldman Sachs and saying, we created it, we repackaged it, and we resold it. We even bet against it, but we never saw it coming. And it's basically an octopus head upside down, with the tendrils all sticking out, looking like hair, and the eyes and everything else sitting on top of a whole suit. So that's why when you mentioned octopus, I wanted to ask that question, because that
sounds like an arrow.
A little like that cartoon's a little more infiltrating than people would necessarily think of just looking at it. The coordination of the octopus with the New World Order. I don't know if any of you looked for it or found it yet or anything. I'm reading it, so I'm not typing that right now. But I always look through the local paper. I live locally. I don't believe everything that I see in it, but that doesn't mean that everything that's put in it.
Cincinnati Enquirer is half the width it used
Not
to be,
really.
and it's a very thin little paper now. The Sunday paper is still half the width as well.
Are you gonna just insult everything that I'm looking at, or are you gonna take what I'm trying to share with you at the values that I'm trying to present it? I mean, the idea that this is being presented with an octopus's body, speaking from the mouth of Goldman Sachs, and I was questioning why octopus was indicated in your breakdown of websites, and you explained because that's associated with the NWO. I wanted to just bring this up because it's being printed in a local paper and has a deeper meaning that I don't think is reaching the public that it's trying to be expressed to. Geez, you got to attack me about everything, don't you? Not all of us could live in Cincinnati, you know.
Oh, God help me.
Or Barbados, or the UK. Some of us have to live in small towns. I'll get over it. You'll be fine. So that's the only reason that I asked about that. But I found it intriguing that octopus carries over into even a local press and is being presented in a way that probably isn't being accepted as what it might be.
Anyone remember Octopus Oil? I mean, was that even a real company? I've heard people say it's a real company, but it sounds like dodgy. Octopus Oil, we have tentacles everywhere. That's actually taken from a book,
I'm
but
not familiar with that.
I think it was like in the 1960s. It was connected with Shell Oil, Mobil. It's I'm not sure if it's like 60s conspiracy theory or something. It's supposedly a controlling oil company that's a sort of like a company above all the other oil companies. Never heard of it?
I have
run
not.
by the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, and Irish.
Oh, wow. How completely amazing.
Yeah, I think it was probably in the Illuminati books, or it might have been in Mission Earth, but I'm looking up Octopus Oil now. It was this sort of fictional company. It was based around the whole sort of like multi-merger, multi-corporation thing. And there's no one, Octopus Inc. They had a little subsidiary company or something, a legal company called Octopus Inc. Octopus Incorporated. You know, Octopus Inc. No, I just thought you might have heard of it. I looked a little, gave you a little look for it, but you won't find it.
Again, not something that I'm familiar with. So.
Yeah, could just be fiction.
Unfortunately, I've been shot down so many times today in my attempts at discussion that I'm afraid to bring up anything more anymore because I might be attacked for no good reason. So I'd like to hear. I want to get back to a question that I wanted to ask Caribbean Critic earlier, if he's still there with us, and I apologize that I have to ask that because I'm on the phone and not on Skype, so I can't see everyone right now. Have you had the opportunity to use any of these things that you have uncovered in a legal setting, such as when confronted by an officer?
Yes,
a
we've
police officer.
Yep, we have both. Excuse me, used in connection with the police, and used in connection with corporations in the Uniform Commercial Code.
Well, and I know you shared your story yesterday about the PriceSmart and the Hewlett-Packard computer. I was here in the U.S. when we encounter a cop, police officer. It has been tried a few times and unfortunately has been less than successful in an awful lot of cases, and I'm not sure exactly why. Stratios has done more research into some of these other methods that have been tried out there.
I think that's because people eventually become intimidated and don't stand on their own 2 feet. They need to be sure of what they're doing, and if you're unsure, don't even try it. But if you're sure of your ground and you stand that ground, okay, you will be. You've got to be prepared to be arrested and spend time in a cell, maybe.
Well, you see,
but
and
when
that's
it
what
comes,
I say. You've got to be ready for that if it happens. If it comes down to it.
If it comes down to it, you've then got to be prepared for what you know is going to happen after, which is you're going to be dragged into a court de facto, this corporate court, and made to pay for acting lawfully and standing up for your rights, or the attempt to make you pay. So if you know what the consequences of those actions are and you're prepared for it, then you can remedy that situation in the court. But you're going to have to take this pain first. There's no pain without gain, as they say. So you have to be prepared for these things.
Right. Again, it's part of the whole responsibility aspect of it.
Yeah.
You have to accept that your actions carry with them consequences and responsibilities and duties and rights. And understanding that just because you are exercising your duty doesn't mean that other people aren't going to act upon you, even though they have no right to do so. But that ultimately, if you stand up for and defend that which is true, they can't really control you. Not until you actually consent. Not until you give them power over you.
Yes, at some point you have to consent to their action and jurisdiction. Well, not at some point you don't have to, but that's what they trick you into doing, really.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that as long as you are doing what is your duty in protecting actual inalienable rights, they can't destroy you.
No, exactly. They can act upon you, but they can act upon your body because you've got joinder with this legal fiction. But if you know how, so you've got to know how their system works and how what you are trying to say works. Like what the common law is about, but what all these statutes, acts, titles, codes actually mean, and how they impact upon you as a living human being. So you need to know. We have to get to a situation. That's why I'm going into it slowly, where it's like driving a car. You're on almost autopilot. You're looking where you're going, but if you want to turn right, you don't think, oh, I've got to pull this lever down here and turn the wheel. It happens. You don't think about it. It becomes an automatic function. And when you get to that stage, when you're dealing with these people, when you know enough about it, and you've practiced it, done it, I've got a cheat sheet anyway to remind you that it's automatic. You don't fall into their legalistic words. You use the common language, but you're aware of what those common language words mean legally. So when you're speaking, you've got to define how you're speaking. I'm not speaking this legalese. If I use this word, it's the word I am using, like with the body of words I use, like without prejudice. You define that without prejudice as defined in Black's Law Dictionary, the dictionary of the Law Society. So you've defined that that's what you're using, that body of words there, and it has that legal meaning, and you're describing it, that I am giving it that legal meaning. That's what I'm saying is going to happen, It's not like a request. You don't request it. It's because it's their dictionary. You're telling them, honour that dictionary. It's your dictionary, not mine.
Right. Put them on the spot.
Yep.
Hold them accountable to what they have already defined for themselves.
Yeah, their own society, rules, regulations, laws, words, whatever.
Don't ask.
That's what I say. You have to use their own laws against them. So, I mean, in some respects, it's like entrapment. You trap them, you con them, you force them into using their own rules. Honour your contract to this law society.
Well, and that's why I wanted to question the difference between the thought process that is put forth as the lawyer who takes himself as counsel as a fool for a client, whatever, versus representing yourself if you have to go to court for any purpose whatsoever. The idea of allowing
the
a
person that takes
representation.
a lawyer has an incompetent child for a. The lawyer has an incompetent child. The fact of hiring the lawyer means that you're an incompetent child, according to the Black's Law Dictionary.
The idea is that hush now, the adults are talking.
And they're an officer of the court.
Right, so they're obviously working for the same side as the prosecutor, the other litigant, the whatever.
And that was clear before the Patriot Act. That's irrelevant, really. It's from the Black's Law Dictionary. It says that.
Can I just put forward a little piece? My wife and daughter were just watching CSI on TV.
I'm very sorry for you.
And the agents go to this judge and ask her for an order so they can surveil this person.
Mm-hmm.
And she says to them, "I can't give you that blanket surveillance." And my immediate reply, my immediate thought to that was, well, of course you can, because Judge gave you the FISA Act and and the Patriot Act.
Mm-hmm.
So it's propaganda on the television that's giving people the idea that they don't have these blanket snooping techniques, but they do.
Sure.
And if the police really did this kind of investigative work, which is completely farcical and not true, why didn't they just put a rope around the ground zero at 9/11 and have every CSI in the country descend on it to sift the dust and analyze it? Did that happen? No, they sold it to China. They sold the steel.
They did the most rapid cleanup without any forensic evidence being gathered that they could possibly do.
Oh, within hours.
Where were they all?
Within hours.
Where's Jack Bowers when you
Within hours, they'd already declared he was guilty.
It was all the Patriot Act and all these things were prepared years before 9/11.
Act was drafted before the Oklahoma City bombing, and unfortunately, because the other two devices didn't go off, wasn't sufficient enough public opinion garnered to catalyze being able to sign it into action. And that's why they had to wait a few years and try again later with something else. Well, they tried it. They tried the World Trade Center once before.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the guy who planted the bomb taped his FBI handler, giving him real bombs instead of the pretend bomb the guy thought he was going to get, and it all came out.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But that FBI handler,
the FBI in New York ordering him to do it because he has to speak to his superiors. The tape goes on and on. It's really something. Ahmad Salam.
and then people say, you know, our government wouldn't do it against us. Of course they do. They do it all the time.
He thought he was in a drill. Ahmad Salam.
So did all the guys on 7/7.
Yeah.
Ahmad Salam.
And people still claim 7/7 was an actual terrorist attack. And Peter Power comes on, he not only twice on TV, but then he drove across town to BBC Radio 5 and said it again on the radio. That it was Visor Consultancy. They were hired to do the exact drills at the exact stations. And fortunately, they had the fortitude to turn from a drill to a real world event, because coincidentally, the exact drill at the exact stations on the exact buses blew up. Oh my gosh!
Well, it's 9/11.
He did
Well,
this
it's
with
the first.
We would never think that planes would be flown into buildings, except you were running how many different scenarios?
Yeah, and on those tapes, you hear them saying, "Is this real world or exercise?" Because
right.
they were told there were going to be false blips inserted on the thing, and there were.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't know which ones were which at that moment, because that's how they get their lower level people to not freak out during the incident, because they think this is part of the drill.
Yeah. Didn't the same thing happen on the 7/7 bombings in London?
Yeah, no, Visor Consultancy was hired to run these drills. And so, how we know this, Peter Power was interviewed as one of the talking heads. Well, he's from a related company. We'll have him on. So, no, he was in a related company. He was the company hired to do it.
2 years before 7/7, this would be 2005, BBC Two Newsnight, they discussed this exact scenario.
Yeah.
But I mean, the day of, the guy admits it, and he said it twice on TV, like, I can't believe this. And he listed off the fact that they had done it, just like I quoted earlier.
And he called it a coincidence, didn't he?
Yeah, and they had the fortitude to move from one to the other. And then he drove across town and said it again on BBC Radio 5. And that wasn't in the same building. That was across
And
town.
if proof isn't proof enough, you know, you can't trust the railway companies. The trains that these bombers were supposed to have caught from Luton, the train was delayed. In fact, it was cancelled. Not delayed, it was cancelled because of ill health. One of the drivers didn't turn up, and the following train, the same. They didn't catch a train until an hour after they were supposed to have caught it. So they were still on that train down to London from Luton when the first bomb went off, and it would be a miracle if people can appear in two places at the same time. It would be the first time in history.
What was really great about this is it mirrored an old Monty Python bit, because the British public is so obsessed with train times and bus times and all that stuff and bus schedules, and it only does it on alternate Thursdays and stuff like that. And the one bus, that wasn't the right route for it. It was in Tavistock, and so they all knew this. And they thought they could put one over on these people who are obsessed with bus schedules.
And guess where they put it into Tavistock Square?
So that the
What is it?
controllers could see it
Yeah.
go off.
That's right, the Tavistock Institute. You're right again.
They managed to get blood splattered on the walls of Tavistock Institute, apparently,
Oh,
when
yeah.
from the explosion.
They love to witness the stuff because they're the mind controllers, the social engineers who plan these game theory.
Well, yeah, it's blood on the stone and all that.
Right.
The old ritual.
Right.
Well, it's like the individuals that were arrested, detained, and let go that were set up to videotape the event on 9/11.
Oh yeah, the not gay brothers who were doing the gay documentary about how sexy the firemen were at cooking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Essential.
They could be more creepy, these two.
Yeah.
They were from Mindbox in Toronto, and they were clearly the one is painting with the laser the first plane because he's shooting at the building, not at the plane. You'd think if he heard the noise, he would have turned and followed the plane to the building. No, he's pointing at the building. He knew the intended target. Why would you do that? He looks up at points, paints with a laser, obviously, so that he can know where to send it.
Mm-hmm.
He's a spotter. Hawk's Cafe deals with that a lot. And outlines exactly who the not gay brothers were. I mean, how creepy. And if you should see the rest of their documentary. It gets pretty interesting after the one of them's buried in rubble after the lobby part collapses and all that stuff, and he gets up and it's really dramatic footage. But the first part of it though, the part of the intended documentary, you know what I mean, is so creepy. I mean, obviously this is a bogus situation. They were set there to do that.
And a man in a cave in Afghanistan could have planned all this, right?
Yeah. And of course, they give such a damn about carbon credits. The guy in the cave, Osama bin Laden, he has to hit Cantor Fitzgerald carbon trading unit CO2e. I mean, how obvious does it have to get? This kills Al Gore's competition. The one place that was destroyed was that. That was the first. Nobody got out from that office. Everybody died. It's the competition to the Chicago Trading Unit, the Chicago Climate Exchange, which is owned by Maurice Strong, who cannot leave China or else he'll be arrested. He's hiding out there, and Al Gore own it together.
You know, at one point they had a picture of an Al Qaeda hideout, and it was like a dumb base, deep underground military base, and it was like a cross-sectional picture of it. If you can remember that, because I can't remember who it was, like Rush Limbaugh or Don Rumsfeld, but he was like saying this is what one actually looks like.
You mean the dug in the rock in the side of the cliff is supposed to be this wonder world of labs and computer facilities and air conditioning and
yeah, this total James Bond inspired pseudo. Yeah.
I mean, they have bunker bombs. One of these would have been exploded. And then what's interesting is what you see in Octopus, you see the 9/11 Octopus, you see the really brave British officer there explaining, we're going to catch them right away and all this. And then you see the same guy beleaguered and just disappointed and whatever. He's interviewed a couple weeks later.
It's funny.
There's nothing to find there.
Yeah, reminds me of Mr. Ben, those scenes.
The place looks the same before you bomb it and after you bomb it. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Anyhow, this picture was basically taken from a book.
Always a sketch.
Yeah.
They always show you animations and sketches because they don't have pictures.
Yeah, it was taken from a Warhammer 40,000. It's like a science fiction role-playing game, and it was a moon base for the Imperial Space Marines. And all they done. Yeah, they took it from a Games Workshop programming manual. You know, like a Dungeons and Dragons sort of tabletop role-playing game thing. And they just changed some of the descriptions, and that was all they'd done. It's hilarious. It's sort of like Dick Cheney policy.
Right.
You know, really like.
On Meet the Press, I believe.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, part of the Neocon's amazing photoshopping talents. You know, like when they convinced everybody to invade Iraq by saying that Saddam Hussein had millions of tanks or something.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Oh yeah, but Dick Cheney also pushed the idea that Saddam Hussein had over 100,000 tanks or something, and all they'd done is they'd taken Photoshop or some other program and like copy paste, loads of tanks. It's ridiculous.
Well,
They don't
sure,
actually show a lot of
but,
this stuff
I
in
mean,
the public, but
that's,
they show the poses.
like Lenny's evidence of, or not his evidence, but the evidence that he has that shows how the planes that quote unquote hit the World Trade Center were all manipulated.
Well, it goes through a steel mesh, through 47 steel columns, comes out the steel mesh on the other side, and the nose, which is made of carbon, like graphite carbon, like a tennis racket. You can go and deform it yourself with a hammer. It comes out perfect the other side.
Yes.
Then,
Totally
perfect. That's when obviously they hit the space bar on Apple's Shake software, which is live compositing, and the whole thing goes to black on 3 networks.
Well, if you've watched that film very carefully, the left wing, as it's going through the smoke of the other building, actually grows in length. Suddenly.
And for it to have gone into the building like that, it would have had to go exactly straight in, because if it were to go off cock to one side like it did, it would have spun around the other way. That's how things work. Hit a paper airplane into the wall and you'll see it.
Right.
Well, not only that, it's amazing to me that they've shown this if you like, short explanation using diagrams and different bits of software of how the plane hit the Pentagon. And you ask people, did you see the plane hit the Pentagon? Oh, yes! All they've seen is the animation. All they've seen is the animation.
The ones in New York have all been boiled down to, okay, you had a good view of it from your apartment. Were you watching right then? No, I was looking at the TV.
Yeah, watching it on TV.
And
yeah, of course.
Up. They only saw it on the TV, really.
Mm.
Right. Which is not nearly the same thing.
No. And the anchors. I hate to defend that people love to mock no plane theory, but it's one of many things. I don't hang my whole hat on it or anything. But the anchors do not describe planes. They saw the raw footage, and somebody was compositing on top. You know what I mean? All they saw was a plane-shaped hole and whatever.
Which is
explosions only. They don't describe planes going in because they didn't see that.
Well, and that's why, once again, they don't allow the actual footage to be played on TV.
Peter Jennings is dead. Dan Rather's knocked out.
Yep.
And the thing is, every one of those anchors is talking to their own bosses. They get these phone calls on the air. They're not random people. The only woman that was interviewed is the wife of the boss, of the producer, the wife of the producer. Every one of them they're talking to their own producer. They're talking, it's somebody above the chain of command in the corporation. Mm-hmm. They're not random callers. They're not eyewitnesses or something.
Yeah, I got you.
Who are locked in, who can't say anything else, who are required to say it.
But
like on a typical Alex Jones show where it's all his favourite callers call in.
Yeah. No, wait, did you see the Stern show?
No, Alex Jones' recent shows.
Alex Jones has fake callers, but Stern.
Yeah, he has his favourite callers call in.
Right.
Thank you, favourite caller.
Yeah, well,
Because if you do what Jones says, that you're really an infiltrator. Then you've only done what he tells you to do, but the movement belongs to him and not us. So we're all just wasting his time and doing irrelevant stuff, don't we? But
if you don't understand and accept that the New World Order is out to get you, you are just a shill like Glenn Beck.
Can't you understand? I've given everything to this.
I know. You can't say anything good about the NWO or any of its plans at all. I was even stuff like, oh, but the streets are really clean and so. Well, you can't get over this show saying that. Killing children.
Buy my DVDs. Yeah. Buy my DVDs. Buy my DVDs.
But that's because they're sending everybody to the death camps.
Right. Exactly.
Excuse
me, Mr. Alex Jones, isn't your wife Jewish? Buy my what?
Oh, Jeff Rentz only published someone else's article, and he's gone. He was fired the next day. And the guy that married Alex Jones to the wife, who didn't know about the wife's background, Tex Mars, just to test the water. He doesn't publish articles on his website normally. or other people's. He published that Kapner's the same article that Jeff Renz published on his website, the one about his wife, just to see what would happen. And of course, nothing happened. He wouldn't even address it. And then Burma said a bunch of nasty things to people who try to even discuss it. You can't discuss it somehow. So Burma said that you should throw your toaster in the bathtub with you and electrocute yourself for even thinking bad thoughts about these wonderful people who are.
Oh, I heard that one.
Guilty.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Tex Mars then nails that, and Alex Jones won't say a word. You know, he only picked on someone he could put down. So Tex Mars, but he did it on purpose just to see what would happen because Jones had such a strong reaction and got Jeff Renz, who has tons of listeners, kicked off the GCN network over it.
So somebody just phoned them up and say, "Do you have a discount for Jewish listeners?" Yeah, kosher. I want kosher discount.
Yeah. So every single one of the sponsors.
Can I pay you David Stars?
Next time I ring the BBC, I'm going to say, you know, will I get a square deal? Are you on the level?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Widow's son. Are you a traveling man? And they want your username, you know, Jobulon.
Jobulon.
I've just sent. I don't know whether everybody's got it, but I know.
Yeah. What's your name
Maggot
called? I remember beef.
Right. You should just have a look at those YouTube videos. This is an advert that's appearing on the BBC and other TV networks in the UK.
Did you post it to the American Freeman chat room? Because I don't seem to have it.
I'll paste it back in there.
Alright. Just shut up.
Just listening to the first few seconds and reading the first few words gives you the idea.
Yeah. Give me a second.
Well, just so that we don't have a total blank air here, the All-Seeing Eye, wonderful. In the UK advertisement.
6, 3, 3.
Yeah, I just done it. Yeah.
That's it. Well, 2 6s, 3 3s. 2 3s on 6, 6, 6.
Yeah, I own the 6 3 6 6 6 6 2 T 5 4 2 properly. Multitasking.
I guess they had to. Once TalkSport did the thing about turning anybody who pays with cash and every other excuse.
We are network
the ante here with this ad, huh?
Yeah, you got to open your curtains during the day, or you could be a terrorist.
Yeah.
Well, right, exactly.
So after
if
they
the
did
curtains
that,
are closed,
this raised the
you
bar,
are...
so they had to come up with this 6336. No,
Yeah.
That's really something.
Well, unfortunately,
Text
my
any question.
speakers aren't working, so I can't hear what they're actually
I guess they're
saying.
daring each other to see how crazy they can get on before anybody says anything.
It's
info
you
at
call the number 63336. Yeah, and ask them any question, and then they'll answer.
6336.
So
Yeah.
my first question will be, are you Illuminati?
What's the one here in the U.S.? They've got one right now here in the U.S.
There was the Audi commercial about that the green police even trumped the real police. They're gonna be kicking you out because your hot tub is too hot. That was during the Super Bowl. This Audi commercial, and then at the end though, they even have the green police busting the cops. That this phony environmentalism, this carbon credit garbage lies about CO2 will trump everything in our society. That's what the message of the ad is. That was the scariest one in America recently.
The music they're playing in the background sound like fantastic.
This is a
as well.
contest, as you know.
There was a lot of double audio on that, wasn't there? There was like chanting, and there's like also like sounded like the music from Phantasm.
Right.
I'm not sure.
I was amazed by that. This last one.
Look how they term it, brothers and sisters.
It's quite clever the way they're mixing in the music with the song, so you just like end up singing along to it. Yeah. dun, 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 dun.
I'm sorry. You mentioned brothers and sisters. And I guess I missed the reference there.
Well, it sounds like horror music soundtrack anyway. It sounds pretty cool. I like that sort of stuff.
Alright, you still lost me, but that's okay.
Uh-huh. Oh, you can't see the YouTube link? Yeah, I was just saying the advert's got like chanting and stuff in it, and it's got some sort of melody that they're singing along to. And it sounds almost like an instrument, because they're just like sort of muted chanting.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sounds like old 80s horror music.
No, unfortunately I'm having issues with my sound elements on my computer, so I can't listen to my YouTube link. Because, somebody took control of my computer and rebuilt my platform, and unfortunately it isn't optimized at the moment. I'm not complaining, I'm just trying to relate facts.
Free him from Windows.
Yeah, well, I can always go back to sleep, I suppose. It just won't be nearly as comfortable anymore.
You can't ever go back to sleep.
Thank God.
Don't go to sleep.
It'll always,
Then Freddy will get you.
Yeah, well, the nightmares just get worse and worse, I guess.
You do something about it, or until you become an adult. You can't stay a child forever.
Well, some people definitely think they can, but, whatever. That's their choice, that's their decision.
But they want you to choose it by desperately wanting limited liability. That's the key.
Well, and, that's how it works, and they set people up to try to convince you of that. I mean, I might have mentioned this the other day, at an Earth Day rally in Washington, D.C., Sting and his wife both talked about how, taking care of the environment is a big issue, and it requires big government to fix the problem.
The Sting, yeah, they're all saying that sort of stuff now.
I mean, come on! What kind of authority level do these people have to be able to make that comment? Well, that's right, none. Zero. Absolutely nothing to be able to make those comments, except that if they don't come out and make those statements, they aren't going to get the sponsorship support by the major corporations that fund their ability to travel all around the world and act like narcissistic assholes.
I heard a funny story about Sting. You might have heard it as well, but didn't he feel sorry for these Amazonian tribes because they're so uneducated and poor and stuff, and they didn't have all the wonders of Western civilization? And he felt sorry for them, so he sent them to be educated. And so they went to business school, and they basically screwed him over. It was hilarious. The whole reason they got educated was just to screw him over, so they say they didn't need him. And so they just became like actual property owners of part of the forest or some other thing, and he was just like, just treating him like a piece of crap. Stupid white man interfering with stuff that is none of his business. That's my story, yeah. Because it was like, he wanted them to be like everlastingly thankful to them, like the white savior sort of thing. I think that's what he's asking for. I'm not sure what his motivations were, but I think it was just like an ego trip for him.
Sure.
Save them, but everybody was astonished that they turned out to be more intelligent than everybody else in the class.
Maggot.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about Robert Greene? Because he was supposed to appear in Aberdeen today, in camera, for a breach of the peace case.
Excellent.
In camera.
Once again, I'm going to play the idiot. Robert Greene.
He's an investigative reporter that uncovered a paedophile ring.
Is this the Scotland one? Yeah, Honey Creek.
Right, okay,
He just
sure.
appeared on EMTV with Holly Greig and the mother. An amazing appearance.
Really?
On the Edge, or whatever it's called. EMTV on the Edge, 2010, 422. Robert Greene and Holly Greig. It's an amazing 2-hour appearance. It's the same show that Brian Garish appears on. Hosted by Theo Chalmers.
Yeah, well, there's all the top legal and police and and government employees involved in this paedophile ring.
But when you see this girl that they all had sex with for years, it's terrifying.
Oh, this is the
She's got Down syndrome and all this?
Right. We talked about this, last week, didn't we?
Yeah. But you said you couldn't believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
Of course you could.
But it also involved the kiddies at that Dunblane school, so the gunman went in there and blew them all away, so they couldn't give evidence.
Mm.
The Dunblane massacre. I don't know whether you've heard about that.
Well, I
No,
heard about that.
actually I haven't.
What was it? 15 children, and a school teacher.
Yep.
Mm. And then he killed himself
Yep.
with a shotgun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He had several guns with him, handguns.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Didn't he carry exactly the right ammunition for the? It was one shot per kill, and the last bullet he saved himself. Sort of
Right,
happens
but these
sometimes.
people are all, just psychotic individuals acting as lone, crazy people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Themselves.
of course. They just get the
Right,
idea in their head.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all from watching Coronation Street.
And they're all doing it to try to impress a girl.
Yeah. How you get brain splattered all over the walls is really a turn on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Nothing
There we
makes
have
Jodie
sex with
Foster,
corpse,
a
whatever it is.
lesbian, love you, a guy, by shooting shooting somebody down in cold blood.
That's
Shows you, man.
Father Bush's business partner Hinckley in his brainwashed
Right.
World Vision
Yeah.
missionaries.
Mm.
Exactly.
And also to test the mechanism, they killed John Lennon.
Mm.
Right.
Another one of the World Vision missionaries. But the guy
Sure.
had the gall to send his own brainwashed son to kill Reagan.
Yeah, well,
They did kill John Lennon, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, we've discussed the Beatle issue, so we've covered that so far this month, this week, this whatever. So
I want to
leave it
refund.
alone for now. Yeah, well,
We're going to send you a ball.
yeah. Why we have to be left with the two least talented, least anything? It's just tragic. But welcome to reality as it's constructed for us. But so trying to get back to any point that coordinates with World Freeman. The assassination or the assassination attempts, the lone gunman theories, the all of these attacks, all of these MK Ultra influenced affairs, all of this control, this top-down effect, all of this extends back ultimately to that we're trying to be systematically stripped of our ability to live as free individuals on the land, period.
Mhm. Oh, one other thing is you forgot to mention probably. They all, by complete coincidence, had psychiatrists.
Usually the same one, Jolly and West, but always, and federal government psychiatrist in every case.
That's it.
And where's your local federal government psychiatry bureau for you to go visit? I've never seen that before. And
I want to be
they also
I want to
have
be a
Jolly
serial
and
killer.
West, but-
That's
and,
it.
And for a long time, they all had Catcher in the Rye in their back pocket.
That's right. That was a favourite. I mean, the triggers could be anything, but yeah, they do like to bring out the same one to give people the idea that it's a coordinated event.
Yep, while they're claiming they're all lone individuals with no connected purpose.
Yeah, the lone gunman theory. That's
Right.
conspiracy theory if ever I heard one. Lone gunman.
It's supposed to insult you to your face, and by fear, you're supposed to go along with the thing.
That's it, yeah, because everybody else is going, it's in the papers, it must be true what they
Well,
say.
it's so
And-
obvious.
Miss how connected
Yeah.
it is, but out of fear, you're the one who's supposed to insist. You, the public, are supposed to just be crushed under the boot in the light of stuff that's glaring in your face.
Well, yeah, you're the odd one out because you notice that it's obviously
Well,
bogus as
everyone
well.
does, but out of just
Yeah.
fear that
Yeah.
you're supposed to conform.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
why they put the
peer
Catcher in the
pressure.
back pocket of every one of them. And John
Yeah.
West is always a psychiatrist. It's because you're supposed to deny reality.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, yeah, because everybody's...
because we said so.
Yeah, that's it.
No,
Don't
they
be
wouldn't do
stands
that.
out.
That can't be real. They wouldn't.
And then
do
even
that.
if you stood out, what can you actually say, really? You know, you just say what we were saying earlier, always like complete coincidence. And you can never actually prove anything because it's all backed by psychiatry. And it's like, what? Do you want to see a psychiatrist as well?
It's all backed by psychiatry.
So they can put you on an SSRI drug, and then you'll have a minor dosage fluctuation, and now it's time to rip the arms off the baby again.
Right.
It's a great website, SSRI Reports, that just goes on for,
Psychiatry Industry of Death is a good program. I saw that ages
you can
ago.
just eliminate the last frames.
Yeah, that's it, where it's all Scientology.
Scientology,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really factually correct all the way through, and then you're so disappointed, like, I couldn't hand this out anymore. I'm going to promote Scientology. It almost discredits it right there at the end, and I think that's the point.
Yeah.
I wonder if they bought someone else's documentary, it's so well made, and then just threw this stuff at the end.
No, it is a Scientology documentary. Unfortunately, they did put that thing at the end. I mean, why can't they just cut it?
Someone had made this documentary on their own, and then Scientology purchased it or something.
Do you know what I
Could
mean? It's my belief that they're putting these obvious things forward that people with a brain can see, and they're just they're giving you a sporting chance, like to notice these things and actually make a difference. But because people aren't, they just think everybody's idiots, and we can do what we like because we're giving them the information. They just don't realise it. Well, guess what? We can do what we like then, can't we? And away we go. Because
maybe if somebody speaks up and says you notice it, then maybe you're more likely to be picked up by a psychiatrist and end up being one of the serial killers. Maybe that's subtext.
Well, it's akin to if the information is provided out there for you to be able to grasp and utilize the Freeman on the land concepts, the coordination under common law, and it's there, and it's published, and it's accessible, but you are made to go and find it and actualize it and participate in it, and if you don't, it's placed into the idea that you consented to the opposite of it. And in much the same way, I think they're...
It's really set up to be dismissed.
Yeah.
Well, but that's what I'm saying, is that in much the same way, they put out for you all of this information that has bits and pieces of truth, and then jumble it in with a bunch of lies, so that as soon as you hit the lies, you reject the lies, and thereby you consent to rejecting the truths, and thusly consent to their same form of control.
It's fine all the way through, and then you're so insulted by the Scientology summary. It's just for 1 second.
Sort of discredits itself. Yeah.
Right. So you reject everything that it says, even if there are elements of truth in it.
It's dead on the whole way, and then but then after it's over, you're almost like, oh my God, have I been tricked? And you reevaluate all this.
Ruins the impact of the film. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's like having say if you hadn't seen the 9/11 attacks and you didn't know about them, and they showed you video footage, and then immediately afterwards it says this is a hoax. You'd think it was a hoax, and everybody else would have a devil of a time persuading you it actually happened, because you've seen it, you've had the impact of it, the psychological impact of seeing it, and all the usual thoughts have gone through your head, same as everybody else, and at the end you're told, some message that totally discredits it. This is a hoax in the case I was giving, and in the other one it's because of the Scientology connection. So it's Scientology's been used to discredit its own message against psychiatry, so it's accidentally being used to promote psychiatry.
The logo of Scientology, and you take a look at it, and turn just on its axis, turn that first triangle the other way. What do you get?
Well,
I have to look
I'm
it
not
up.
looking at it at the moment, so I don't know.
They incorporate this Christian cross as well into it now.
Christian cross, it's like an S, and the two triangles.
No, you got the on the eye.
No, it's like an S with two triangles going the same direction, pointing to the upper left.
Yeah. Freud was one of the most famous, probably, psychiatrists of a famous Jewish family, of course.
Right.
disciples came up with one dangerous thing after another.
Well,
Including his nephew Edward Bernays, who wrote a lot of it. But then Wilhelm Reich, who came up with orgone energy, that may have been a good thing. And Freud tried to deny that he even said it, but it's right there in his stuff. He refers to the physical energy, orgone energy. And then, there's a guy that Bandler based everything on. Milton Erickson, MD. The hypnosis and NLP and all that stuff. Every facet of what Freud came up with is just dangerous and ruinous to our whole lives.
Every facet. I guess that should be a discussion for another show all the way through, discussing Freud's theories and Edward Bernays' theories of propaganda and all of that, and how that ties into how we've been subverted into accepting and being conditionalized to believe that the Federal Reserve and the current system of transnational governmental institutions and roundtables is good for us. It feels like there's an awful lot there to talk about. Can anyone hear me?
No,
Yeah.
I don't know much about Freud anyway, really. I know he came to the conclusion that everything revolved around sex, which is accurate, but I haven't really studied him in too much depth.
Well, you know, everything may revolve around sex. I guess I don't know for sure. I just suddenly felt like I was talking into a whole group of empty air there for a moment, and
The phone had to ring in the middle of the show, so I went to silence it briefly.
Gotcha. I see. Well, you know, that's generally how it happens.
I'm called by people who know I'm on the air at this time of day.
Yeah.
Right, which is even better. Even better to have people decide that they need to interrupt you when they know that you're busy.
Yeah, I got somebody kept sending me messages saying, read my blogs. Well, I was in the middle of the show, and I was like, I'm in the middle of the show. I'm not going to read your blogs. The blogs is philosophy.
I'm not going to plug your blogs unless you send them.
No, that's it. I've got to read them through, and then decide if I'm going to plug them. But English isn't perfect, so I'm not going to bother.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, well, you know, that can totally discredit something. Totally discredit somebody.
Well, yeah.
So,
it was just too much a coincidence.
see, there we go. There it happens again. But it just happened to be everyone all at once there, and I stopped talking and realized that it was the only thing was missing was crickets chirping in the background. I was like, well, maybe I got dropped off the call here. Maybe I just totally blanked out on this end. But so I figured I'd just ask.
Yeah, well, I might as well plug him anyway. His name's Giovanni Reese, and he's got a MySpace page, probably the same name. I can't bother looking it up, but you'll probably find it Giovanni Reese, MySpace. He does like loads of philosophy blogs. I mean, they're all right, but
whatever.
Should work on his English a bit.
Well, while we're plugging a couple things here real quick, did we get a tiny URL set up for your MySpace page, Maggot?
I don't know. Just, if he suggested it.
All right. Well, I hope.
I'll do it right now.
Okay. Well, he'll take care of that right now. I do want to remind our listeners you've been listening to American Freeman on the Freeman Radio Network. If you want to learn more about the World Freeman Society, please check us out at worldfreemansociety.org. There are forums, there are blogs, there are all different kinds of projects, and plenty of information that will give you a whole breadth of understanding and how you can be part of this and how you can stand upon common law jurisdiction instead of this BS that's been perpetrated upon you. We do have a tiny URL set up for Maggot's MySpace page. It's tinyurl.com/mymaggot.
One word on that.
Yep,
Yeah.
all one word there. That'll link you to his blogs and to his page and to everything else. You can find Evstratios at Truth Free on Skype. You can find me, Don, on Clark Lake Perry's at Skype. I want to thank everyone for being with us today. I want to thank the Caribbean Critic for joining us again today. We appreciate your insight and everything you've had to share with us.
All right, well, let's wrap it up. Anybody else? All right, I'm your responsible party of Stradius Constantine Braze. It's so funny to say that, but it's actually true. I'm your responsible party.
He is.
And let's take you off the air here.
Have a great day, folks. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week.
All right, we're off.
Fun.
God, this is tiring. It's so hard.
I know, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. This is tough work.
God, idiot does this. Alex
I know. Yeah, well, it's a matter.
I don't know how many days a week he does it, so I guess I can't answer that.
But his voice sounds different every day, so figure that out.
I don't think he sounds different every day. I just think he's had more people backing him right from the get-go who had connections that allowed him to start screaming and ranting and raving from the first day.
You can plug if you want, Caribbean, when we do this.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Well, I'm part of a website called forallofus.com.
Okay, well, you know what? Anytime you're on, anytime we've got it set up right there at the end. I know, and Estratios hates being, conditioned into doing anything by obligation. But I try to make sure that we plug websites and plug locations where people can find us.
But I could. You said you had a radio show on there. I couldn't find any archives like that. Did they not archive it? I find that site's not very good at archiving.
What site?
forallofus.com. I like that show Eternal Vigilance that they have.
Oh, Justin Prim. I'm still in regular contact with Justin.
Yeah, I thought it was rather interesting. I know people from South Carolina. That's how I went to the Georgia Guide Center. I went down there. I mean, it wasn't the greatest show of all time, but it was pretty interesting. Worth listening to. But that was the only show I could find there. There were a couple like Hello kind of archives, but I couldn't find it. You said there was some sort of show there. I couldn't find it.
Well, guys, I gotta go. I've got some things I'm gonna do this afternoon, early evening. I will talk to y'all later. Thanks for a good show, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
See ya.
Okay. Bye. That was a good show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, I'm gonna go bang my head in the desk.
That much of a good show.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Alright. See ya. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, that's fine.